You are in the belly of the beast, as Kathleen said. Behind me is the big crusher. Behind me further is the baby crusher. A lot of water, as you see all of the if we opened the valves, well, we couldn't get out of here. There's a room off to the side filled with boots, which people have to wear. I see Paul Long, whenever I've been here, walking around with hip boots. But tonight, Evie Day, her first name is initials, E period, V period. She likes to play with it. I've renamed her tonight Ethical Varmint, Ethical Voodoo, and the one that's my favorite is Eek Vroom. You're right. This is the beginning of a big week for her. You can take this card when you leave. It announces an installation that the New York City Opera Company is putting on. This involves costumes, and we'll talk a little bit about Evie's involvement with fashion, couture, clothes, costumes, but this involves costumes from the wardrobe of the New York City Opera. You'll have to go to see this. The opening is on Friday from 5 to 6, but it'll be up for a long time, right?
5 to 8.
5 to 8. You could actually ship 5 to 6. It's New York, Bill. How long will it be up for?
It will be up through the opera season until the Nutcracker comes with the ballet. And then it will actually come back in, I believe, March or the early spring when the ballet leaves. And then City Opera comes back, and all of the sculptures have been designed to be collapsed in a really compact way, to go up and down really quickly, which was part of the excitement of working with them, theatrical people, working with a team of people that that's what they do, is suspend things and have things go in and out really fast, get tracked and moved.
So
anyway, so
they're above you as if they were sets coming down from the fly from the ceiling. But we're going to start with Evie. You were born in New York?
Yep.
Lenox Hill?
Lenox Hill.
But you only spent about 2 years here?
Just about 2.
And then you went to Greenwich, where you were reared.
I don't really remember any of it, but it's true.
You remember nothing of being reared in Greenwich?
Not much.
Where did you go to high school there?
In the Berkshire Mountains in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I remember that painfully. I don't want to remember it.
Then you won't have to. But you go to Hampshire College.
I did, and I really liked that.
Why?
I liked that because it was something that was less conventional than things in Connecticut that I don't remember. But I knew that it was very different, and also that you know, it's a liberal arts college, but that you get to sort of create your own major, create your own language essentially, and you have to study these different fields, but there was just a much more openness to education, and the premise was, study what you want to study, and you're studying it for yourself because you don't get grades. And the other thing was that it was really hard to get out because you had to convince your teachers and these committees why your work had been.
What major did you create for yourself?
Well, I wanted to go there because it wasn't an art school. I knew that I wanted to do art, but I knew I didn't want to go to art school.
So you thought of yourself as perhaps an artist?
Perhaps an artist. I wasn't necessarily sure in high school, but I knew I wanted to get a real education and then have something to make art about. This, being at Dieu Donné, is sort of like my experience at, similarly. I mean, I'm just sort of putting these threads together, but it's very similar in a sense of like you're not sure what you want to do. You have these resources here, you have this access, you don't know what's going to happen, and you want to focus, but it's about exploration. At least the grant, this special residency that was given to me to do here. So excited, exhilarated. I never ever thought about working with paper, pulp, or paper. I would have no idea what I was going to do. And in fact, it wasn't until the 4th. I kept saying to Paul and I'm going to be the one artist that just doesn't do anything and is sort of awful, so you just don't, but you can't frequency what you're going to do because the way of working here is a material that you just can't just get your hands on, and it's something that you also just can't do at home or in your studio. So it really is this idea, you move in and sort of learn some basic stuff, and then you ask questions. It's like, what would happen like this? Like, oh, well, this might happen. And then you say, what would that? And like, well, I don't know, but let's try it. And being a 3D artist, 2D is something that's just, images that come to mind in 3 dimensions for me. So in the end, it's like I got to compress my 3D images into a 2D form, but it's still 3D to me. It's like compressed. But Bill wants to say something.
I want to go back to Hampshire. I want to find out what your major was. What did you create for yourself?
I ended up being, art major, art history. So, but I did, take cognitive and something science and natural science and humanities and arts and anyway, I actually got my science thing done the first semester, and I've never been good at science, but I was so interested. There was this class called physiology of the body, and so you went into a laboratory, you read scientific papers on how to make sort of proof for science, and so anyway, and about the body. And so I paired up with a classmate, and we put electrodes on our thighs and our calves, and was it here, and wearing high heels to see whether there was any sort of electrical stimulation that was really different.
Was there?
And there was, but it was still not. Couldn't quite publish it because there's this wave from there and there. So we learned how to write a real scientific paper, and this is a long time ago now, so don't sound so articulate. I don't really sell this, but it was.
Then you go to Yale for graduate school. And then you come directly to New York City?
I did.
Where'd you live?
In the Gowanus area. Now it's kind of hot.
Near Monty's Venetian room?
Back then, I don't know about that.
Well,
is that near the canal?
Yes,
right
absolutely.
By the canal.
Absolutely near
I
the
can
canal.
smell the canal.
You're there in a working studio, right?
A live work studio, actually the most fabulous studio and the most inexpensive studio I've ever had. It's not like that anymore, but and with 4 artists, and we sort of took over the space, and we made it live work. We put it in our showers, and we put in heat, and we put in all these things, and just so that we could work. But we still actually couldn't work unless we played ping pong in winter.
Are you handy that way?
That's
You've got a lot of tools in your
That's
studio.
the other thing about going to graduate school for sculpture, and at Yale, the great thing about it, the other attractor to this program was that this building we were in out by the hockey rink, was this great old enormous building, huge spaces. I mean, my studio had ceilings that were 30 feet high and were probably twice the size of this room. I mean, wow. So and while I was there, I never made anything really.
You're a 20-something-year-old at that point.
Yeah.
Never to have anything like that, maybe.
No. So that definitely, I think, had some influence in my way of thinking. Like, oh yeah, there's cheap spaces like this around.
What are you working on when you're in the Gowanus Canal studio?
I was working on ideas. I had done these deconstructed wetsuits. I was sort of deconstructing superheroes and suspending them. And then I started actually working on small things, which is very funny. Like I worked on drawings of Hugh Hefner's private jet.
When you say small?
Like actual blueprint drawings, sort of trying to take the language of architecture, because I was very interested in space that was experiential, space you could walk through, space that was large, but it didn't have to be full, it just had to be experiential. So that's something that I've always had.
So Hugh Hefner's private jet.
That's a place that I fantasized about experiencing.